Hello and welcome to Cupertino Insight. My name is Dorothy Cornelius. I'm the City Clerk for the City of Cupertino and also the host of this program. Here with me in the studio tonight is Barbara Rogers, one of the council members of the City of Cupertino. Welcome to Cupertino Insight, Barbara. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you very much, Dorothy. It's very nice to be here.
Good. One of the things I want to talk about with you, Barbara, is a particular organization you belong to, the Women in Municipal Government. Could you please tell me a little bit about that group?
I'd be glad to. It's a minority caucus of National League of Cities. And National League of Cities is an organization of cities all across the country which work together to try to get laws passed that will benefit cities and to solve mutual problems. The Women in Municipal Government started about 10 years ago when there were less women serving in local office, and there was a need felt by those elected women to get together to learn better about the process, to become more effective within it.
What exactly do you particularly get out of that group?
I suppose there are 2 or 3 main things. One, of course, is the association with women from all across the country who have perhaps the same problems or have encountered situations, and hearing about how they've handled it can help me, or vice versa. The second is the ability to learn from each other as to how to be more effective within the process of National League of Cities itself, how to become involved in one of the 4 major policy committees that the League has, how to become more visible if that's what's important for the city, how to get things happening within the process and then within the legislative system of the United States government.
Barbara, one of the things that women have always complained about is exclusive men's groups and how women have never been allowed to join these. Question, does this group allow men to join?
They are welcome to come to all our meetings. It's set up for membership by women because of our peculiar goal to help women to help each other to become more effective.
So this is really a support network type group for women, but men are welcome to come to the workshops.
Oh, absolutely, and in fact they do. The last one we had was on stress, and the men who attended really did not participate as in telling us who were there, women, how they handled stress. Maybe they learned something from us, I don't know.
That would be terrific, and I assume that's the way it worked. One of the things you do as a council member is writing the Cupertino Scene, the pamphlet that the city sends out to its residents 11 times a year. Could you tell us a little bit about the background of the scene and how you got involved?
I'd really like to, because I think that most people today don't know, or all of them don't anyway, that Jim Jackson about 10 years ago started the Cupertino Scene, because prior to that we had a rather slick color print publication that came out to the citizens, and it was really a propaganda piece, and I don't think it was very credible, and something else was really needed. And Jim perceived this and started the Cupertino Scene with the agreement of the rest of the council members then, and it has continued even after his having left the council, because when I knew he wasn't going to run again, it seemed as though it was such a good thing it ought to continue. So he showed me how to do it, and we've tried to have it come out and be a credit to the city.
I'm sure that it is. How do you decide what articles go in that publication?
They have to be, in my view, and I'm the one who decides when I do it, of general interest to the city and not to benefit a profit-making group, things that people should know about what the city is doing or questions they might have generally.
All right. One of what I feel is the most important features of the scene is the back where the sound off card is. Do many people take advantage of that opportunity to let the city know what they feel about things?
Yes, they really do, and it's very gratifying as well as useful. It depends, of course, on the issues of the time, how many we get. But Every sound-off card that gets sent back is listed by one of the secretaries at City Hall every week. And that running list, once a week, is given to the staff members at a staff meeting, and they're assigned by department head to be responded to. And in the scene, we try to take those of general interest or those when we've received a lot of questions, time and space permitting, of course.
In the last, say, month or so, what have been the major issues coming up on the sound-offs?
Traffic.
That's a perennial.
Not everybody likes the interconnect system, and we hear about that regularly, as well as other facets of traffic. 85. Then the particular things that affect an individual, whether it's barking dogs, behavior in the park, that type of thing.
Okay. Thanks very much for being with us here today, Barbara. It's really been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll see you later at the council meeting.
Right.
Okay. One of the most long-standing and active commissions here in the city of Cupertino is our Library Commission. Let's look at them in action.
The function of the Library Commission is to act as an advisory committee to the council. We act as a liaison between the county library staff and council, between community groups such as the Friends of the Library, which is a volunteer group, and the council and staff. Also, one of the early functions was in preparation of the plans and meetings and hearings dealing with the new site or the current site of the library. Prior to 1960, the only library service we had was a bookmobile stop. And around that time, the mayor, then Mayor Pelosi, set up a Library Commission and a few of the other commissions, as I understand. And we opened our first library in what is now the Ilario Center, and the health food store that's now there was the original library. Then in 1971, we moved over to the new building that we have and became what we are today. What makes Cupertino special in the system is that it houses the central reference collection for the Santa Clara County Libraries, which is a real benefit to the citizens of Cupertino because we have, besides our own reference section, we're the central resource for all of the county. Therefore, students can come in, or adults, whatever, can come in and actually get hands-on material much more easily than in the other county libraries. And also we have staff who are particularly trained in using these resources. So we are rather spoiled and very, very lucky in that we do have this collection here. We are going to be converting all of our circulation to a microcomputer system very shortly. The equipment is now here, and the staff is busily barcoding all of our books. Hopefully, this system will be up in the fall of 1984. Right now, they're going through all the books and putting like barcodes like this on all of the books. It's much like the grocery stores. Be able to scan a book and check it out much more quickly than we do now, and also be able to keep track of books, where they are in the system, if they are overdue, if not, what library they may have been loaned to. And we hope everybody will be patient because it will make a much quicker checkout afterwards. I think the goals of the Library Commission are to see that we really receive the best library service for the citizens of Cupertino that we can get. Libraries are very important to the community because they offer so much information for people. They're not just a place to go to take out a book read on a cold night, or to find material for a research paper or such. The library has magazines and newspapers and records. It has all kinds of information stored on microfiche. With the reference section, you can just browse and learn so many wonderful things. I think it is a very, very important place in our community as an educational, a stimulating point. It's one of the basics of our society, I think, that we need to have.
If you'd like to get involved with the barcoding effort at the library, please call 253-6212. Recently, the mayor gave his State of the City address at the Cupertino Chamber of Commerce. We'd like to share that address with you.
First of all, I want to perhaps destroy, I hopefully not destroy too much, some of the hopes of some people here, those members of the Cupertino Women in Business. I spoke before them in December, and I want to let them know that this time I will keep my clothes on. But I find it very interesting that this is the State of the City address, which follows so closely upon the State of the Union address last night. I think there are a few parallels. After having put in the stop signs in town along Stelling, we were faced a bit with possible acts of terrorism, and so I did consult with the chamber as to what security measures would be taken. After all, the president does have the bulletproof glass and the like. And I was informed that Darlene would stand on one side and Joe on the other, and they would have a double layer of saran wrap between them. The other thing is that this is going on television. And of course, the President's State of the Union was beamed worldwide through Armed Forces Radio, Voice of America. We want you to know that this program is going direct to the crossing guard at Blaney and Rodriguez there. But really and sincerely, fellow council members who are here, other elected officials, and the members of the Chamber and citizens of Cupertino, I wish to thank you for this opportunity to address you in what has been billed as the State of the City. In the brief time we will have together this afternoon, I wish to review some of the significant happenings of 1983 and then move forward to my outlook for 1984. Shortly after the first of the year, the City Council moved into the era of television by airing its meetings via United Cable. While this did not result in a wholesale switch in viewer taste or the demise of Monday Night Football, it did signal a move on the part of the city to bring government and the governmental process closer to the community. This is a matter to which I am wholeheartedly dedicated and which will be enlarged and embellished in the coming year. I myself have begun monthly luncheon meetings with community leaders, and thus far the results have been most positive. Perhaps of greatest significance to the community was the completion of the revision of the general plan. The process had begun some 3 years previous, and after many hours of research, debate, and public hearings, our efforts finally reached fruition. From the general plan review emerged the decision by the council to impose a construction tax. Now, for the record, let me point out very clearly that this was not the imposition of a new tax. Rather, it replaced the old method of assessment of projects with a very clear-cut and I feel fair schedule of fees based upon square footage for commercial development and units for residential. Now the developer knows well ahead of time what the cost will be for general road improvements, etc. I might add that this was done partly in response to developers' request to know their costs at a very early point in the planning and design stages of a project. This past year also saw us continuing projects such as the resurfacing of streets, reconstruction of curbs, gutters, sidewalks, and the like. While to some this may not appear to be much, just remember it the next time you ride on a smooth street or walk on an even sidewalk in our city. These are the taken for granted items. Items which cost us money the average citizen doesn't pay too much attention to, but they are important in the infrastructure of the city. Overall, the city weathered the downturn in the economy and is looking forward to better things in the future. And let's take a look at that future. And first of all, I want to make it very clear, I'm glad the press is here and the like, that Cupertino is not in the market for a sports arena. Just about 4 years ago, I stood before you as a candidate for City Council. And at that time, I cited some issues and sounded a theme. I quoted the poet John Donne, who wrote, "No man is an island unto himself alone." And I substituted the word city for man. As I stand before you today, I sound that same theme, but instead of substituting that one word, I will keep the original and merely add the words city or business to it. No man, no city or business stands alone. If you look at the relationship between the city and its business community, I think you will find it, to use the words of the computer generation, user-friendly. As you well know, that does not mean we will always agree, but where we disagree, hopefully we will do it in a friendly manner. We see ourselves working in harmony with the other segments of the community to achieve the best possible quality of life. Many of the problems which faced us in 1980 still remain and to some degree have intensified. Let me share my thoughts on those and offer some suggestions. First of all, traffic. The problem of moving people in, around, and through our community still exists. This is a problem which should be of prime concern to all in this room. If people experience greater and greater difficulty in moving about in our community, they will not want to work here, and even more importantly to you, the business community, they will not want to shop or do business here. The more time they spend on the road trying to reach your business, the less time they have to spend their money in your establishment. The city has been working vigorously with a number of people to alleviate the situation, but the time has come to do more. We must begin an all-out assault to bring about the completion of Highway 85 and the widening of 280. The time has come for you, the members of the chamber, to also do your part. Having one of your members appear at a hearing or write a letter is not enough. Each of you should make a personal effort to contact your legislators in Sacramento to let them know your concerns. This is an election year. I don't think it's too unreasonable to ask the incumbents for an accounting of their efforts in this regard, and to push for a commitment from all candidates that they will work positively and vigorously for these projects. They will be coming to you for your vote and your financial support. Let them know the numbers you wish to talk about are 85 and 280. We must also dramatize to the entire area our concern about this issue. At Christmas, Valco had a community Christmas tree of canned goods. Why not let that same location be the focal point for the gathering of signatures on a petition that is 2 miles long, the length of the 85 corridor in Cupertino? Let each business in the community be a gathering place for these signatures. If this is a concern for you and you wish to do something, then get it going. I will give it all my help and will personally help you deliver it to Sacramento. For those of you who live in nearby cities, contact your own city council and get their support for this improvement. This is not just a Cupertino problem. This is a problem that affects the entire region. Our neighboring city of Saratoga must forego its parochial attitude. We must let them know we are tired of their obstruction. Finally, something must be done about the inner movements within the city as resident and worker wish to shop, dine, and the like. Therefore, I will be proposing to the City Council that a task force be established to study the feasibility of a shuttle service to be operated within the city. There are obstacles to be overcome, but I believe it can be done. We must start more thinking about the future. The phrase, "it cannot be done," should be eliminated from our vocabulary. Secondly, solid waste disposal. The past few weeks have seen the possible demise of a proposal to handle solid waste disposal in the local area. The problem still remains. We must find a reasonable, safe, cost-effective method to dispose of solid waste. Again, this is a matter which vitally affects you as a business person in Cupertino. In the very near future, the Council will be meeting with a citizens group to review their report on solid waste disposal. I ask you to become involved with this group. While we are negotiating for some disposal sites on a relatively short-term basis, we must look to the future needs of our city. Recycling is one of the areas to be addressed. Even at its best, however, recycling will not solve the problem, but it may help. Fundamentally, however, the people of this city are going to have to face the problem that it is our waste which must be disposed of in our region. We cannot simply say, "let someone else take it." We heard quite a bit from the opponents, but very little from supporters or from proponents of alternatives. Next, housing. The need for decent, affordable housing continues to grow. Again, this is a matter which affects you as a member of the business community and should be of concern to the entire community. We are becoming an aging, smaller unit, childless society. The change in family structure has caused a need for smaller units. The increasing age of our population also demands smaller units. Our seniors want to remain here. They have their ties here, and some of those ties are with your businesses. Again, we must look at priorities. And at the present time, and this may frighten some people, but do we need more and more offices? Or do we need at the present time more housing for our children, our parents, or ourselves? We must maintain a balance with a good, healthy quality of life. While the profit motive is an integral part of the capitalist system, it can work against us if things get out of balance and we lose sight of people. Even that grand old man of economics, Adam Smith, would tell you that. In the past year, we established a citizens committee to look at the problem of housing in our area. The Chamber has a representative on this committee, and from all reports I have, he's doing very, very well. We appreciate that. But inform yourself of their activities, and if you have ideas, share them. Remember, if the costs continue to rise, rental and the cost of new housing, you either lose your customers or their purchasing power. It's simple economics. Schools. 21 years ago, when I moved to this community, its schools had a nationwide reputation as among the best in the United States. Today, those same systems stand in imminent danger. The schools from kindergarten to college are in trouble, and something must be done to save them. Stable and adequate funding of the public schools is a must if they are to survive. We as city government, and you as citizens and members of the business community, must go all out in support. The schools are our future. If they do not have the wherewithal to do the job, you will pay the price with a dropout who spends his or her time shoplifting, or the poorly trained employee who makes mistakes in computation and the like, thus costing you money. I cannot stress this point enough. And I say this not because of my background in education, but because it is a very basic fact we must acknowledge. An educated society is a thriving society, a society which moves forward. The opposite is stultification, decay, and ultimately death. You really have no choice. You must support our schools. And this is the message that must be delivered to Sacramento. California is 50th in the percentage of personal income spent on education, even though it has the third highest per capita income. And then we have our, what I call our social community services. And certainly the apparent upturn in the economy bodes well for the immediate future. Preliminary figures indicate the city will do much better than anticipated in revenues. However, the needs which face us in the immediate and distant future are considerable. To maintain our quality of life, we must preserve some of the open space which now exists at our school sites. We have entered negotiations with the Cupertino School District for the purchase of land at the Jollyman and Hoover sites. And hopefully we will reach an accord which will benefit the city and the school district while respecting the best interests of our citizens. Cupertino definitely needs a community center. Establishment of such a center would coordinate existing services, enable us to provide additional ones. The move toward single-parent families has created a desperate need for child care facilities and counseling services, and this is not being provided by the county as it has in the past. A community center would provide a central location for such activities. We will need funds for the establishment and maintenance of such a center. Monies have been put aside also to aid the relief of traffic congestion. As I have mentioned previously, we must move forward on this issue, and with your assistance, I know we can. An improvement in this area, I think you would all agree, would definitely enhance the quality of life. If the parents came home a little less tense from fighting the traffic, they might get along better with their mates and with their children. For too long, the Monte Vista section of our city has been dormant. I believe this section of the city possesses unique characteristics which can and should be preserved. However, at present, the incentive is not there for accelerated, consistent, concentrated quality development. I believe it is time we sit down with the concerned citizens of that area, as well as the business and development community, to seriously consider a redevelopment zone for Monte Vista. And I will propose such an action to the council. Finally, I must address our corporate residents of the city. For too long, with few exceptions, they have been an unseen factor in our city. They provide employment and contribute to our tax base, but their involvement and participation in the life of the city is minimal. Therefore, I am moving forward to establish a mayor's corporate task force, wherein representatives of the major corporations in Cupertino will be invited to participate in frank discussion of our mutual concerns. Through this ongoing medium, I believe we can retain the firms we have here and strengthen their interaction in our city. We have much to offer, and more is on the horizon. Businesses and residents will not have to leave Cupertino if we take an active leadership role. Cupertino is a unique community. Not many cities our size can boast of the special blend of people, geography, and technology that exists within our limits. We have reached this position of preeminence through the hard work of our residents and businesses, and just as importantly, through the tremendous efforts and skills of our previous councils and our dedicated city staff. And I might just make an aside that I have the highest respect, and I think Cupertino can be proud of its city manager, Mr. Quinlan, who not only does a good job here, but he's respected not only throughout California, but throughout the United States for his skills. We are a leader, and we should be proud of it. We should not be content to be, citing a phrase from history, a tugboat in the wake of a man of war. San Jose may have its Horizon 2000. I say our horizon is beyond that. I am proud of this city, and you also should be. I believe we have a great future ahead of us. We cannot stop the world, but we must move with it and help to shape it. You have at your tables a copy of a report regarding the future of the county. Take it with you, read it, and discuss it. I believe you will find it most challenging. I do not agree with all it contains, but I do believe it will form the basis for fruitful study and discussion. This is 1984, but we need not fear the future. Let's take what's considered the age of Big Brother and turn it into the age of brother and sister. Through a mutual respect for one another, we can work hand in hand to make this a better community. I believe we must look to the future with the optimistic eyes of the young child. We can have our hopes and dreams realized. I can think of no better way to express it than in the words of the late Robert Kennedy. Some men dream dreams and say why. I say, why not? Thank you very much.
That was really an excellent speech. And Mayor Plungy brought up a lot of interesting items that are currently before the city. And here to discuss some of those with us this evening is the city manager, Robert Quinlan. Hi, Bob. It's really nice to have you here.
Hi, Dorothy. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
One of the things that John Plungy did discuss was Highway 85. And I thought perhaps the people viewing would like to hear what is going on with Highway 85. We've been talking about it for a long time. What is the state of the completion of Highway 85? What's happening?
Well, there's a policy board, as you're probably aware, that's been appointed, and John Gatto is a member of that board, and they're now involved in the alternative analysis study. That's to decide what mode we're going to have on the facility or in the facility. We're pretty well heartened by the progress recently. Governor Duke Majan has taken a much more positive position towards highway construction and the 85 project in particular. And so we're pretty enthused with progress being made not only at the state level but also at the policy board level in the county. The study is well underway, and hopefully within the next year we'll be resolving that portion of it through public hearings. There'll be some hearings out in the various communities which are impacted by the 85 project.
Bob, you say they're looking at what mode of transportation would go in the corridor. Does that mean that it may not necessarily be a freeway for automobiles, but
That's correct. There's several modes. I don't have the various alternatives before me, but there's about 6 or 7 alternatives that are being discussed. Probably we will end up with a project that will have either a limited access facility, freeway type, or semi access with something between a freeway and expressway, but with a reservation in the corridor for some type of mass transit, light rail, what have you.
I see. Maybe I'm wrong, but seems to me that our council has endorsed the concept of a freeway in Highway 85.
They've endorsed the development of the 85 project for an intra-county facility. I don't recall whether they specifically stated freeway. I think they kind of left that up to the needs and the design factor, which we're going through now.
Right. Is it correct that all of the cities along the corridor, as well as the county, are financially participating in this alternative analysis?
No, not at this stage. They're involved. Let me correct that. They are involved with the study itself. They are participating, but they are not participating in right-of-way acquisition, nor are they participating in construction at this time. There is concern about the eventual funding of the project. It's a little too early to tell whether this will be totally state funding or will there be a need for some local funding, both in terms of right-of-way preservation as well as actual construction. The project itself, though, as far as the analysis is concerned, is a participation by each individual city in the corridor plus the state and county.
State also then. Now the city of Cupertino, I do believe in the past the council has set aside a certain amount of funds just in case it would be necessary to
That's correct.
put up some money for the purchase of
We have
right-of-way.
$4 million reserve for that, that we've accumulated over a period of years for that purpose.
I see. So that's a lot of support for the completion of Highway 85.
We hope so. We hope so.
Another problem, maybe it's not a problem, but it seems to be, that was brought up by the mayor and has been discussed by council for some time, is solid waste disposal, not just for Cupertino, but for this entire region. It's my understanding that you have been working on some type of short-term solution, and also that a committee was formed by council to look at some possible solutions. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Surely. Let me take the committee first. We call it SWAC. It's the Solid Waste Advisory Committee to the City of Cupertino. Council decided to appoint this committee when the preliminary report come out by the North County Solid Waste Management Group called SWEMA, recommending Bryan Canyon in our city as a disposal site, solid waste disposal site. And at the time that that report came out, there were a number of citizens who opposed that immediately and descended upon the City Council requesting some type of action. Council, since they were not in a position to respond at that time, decided that we should appoint a committee of citizens in Cupertino to look at the city's interests in this regard. And they did this and attempted to conduct their study in conjunction with the progress of the SWEMA group itself. They did advise the council in a report that they were recommending against the Bryan Canyon facility as a disposal site. They do have some other responsibilities, and the council is now discussing that with them and whether that committee should continue on or whether long-term solutions should be studied by another group, as well as some recycling efforts. And one of the group's standing committees that we have now that has been discussed for that purpose would be the Energy Commission. Now, several months ago, I was contacted by the City of Mountain View regarding a possible arrangement whereby Mountain View might acquire the Ferrari Brothers site for landfill purposes, and would we be interested? And of course, we indicated immediately that we were interested in some kind of an interim solution, since it did not look at that time, and which has proven to be true, that we would be able to accommodate a long-range solution at this particular moment in time in Cupertino's history. So we did enter into negotiations in this regard, and I'm happy to report that it looks like we have some type of agreement, at least on concepts, which will be presented to our City Council February the 6th tonight.
What's happening to Cupertino's solid waste now? I mean, where is it taken now?
It goes to the Ferrari Brothers. It's under agreement with the Ferrari Brothers themselves. This proposed acquisition by Mountain View would then place it under Mountain View's control. In addition to the site that's been permitted, there's an additional fourth of land owned by Ferrari that's not permitted that is proposed to be used for the landfill site. So we'll actually get an expansion of area. If Sunnyvale participates in this along with the Los Altos Hills, Los Altos, and the incorporated areas, as well as Cupertino, we anticipate about 11-year life for disposal at that facility.
So if what you're saying then basically is that if some long-range solution is not found in approximately 11 years, we'll be in this very same situation
That's
again.
correct. Exactly.
Okay. Well, I hope this works out for the city. Another a thing that's coming up on tonight's agenda, and that the city has been talking about for a while, is an item called a development agreement. Now, in the past, the city has not done this type of thing for development. When developers come in, they submit their application, and we have a public hearing at Planning Commission, and then we have one at City Council, and they receive some type of permit with conditions on it. Now, sometimes if the development is not completed before the general plan is changed or something, there is some confusion to the developer whether they go under the new general plan, the old general plan, or what. And it is my understanding that one of the purposes of the development agreement is to eliminate that type of confusion, that once they enter into this agreement with the city, they know pretty much what their conditions will be and what will happen during the development process. Is that correct?
That's essentially correct. This is available due to legislation passed by the state legislature in the last few years. It really works best in an area where there is more of a long-range type of development. There is a significant contribution and investment by the developer, not only in the private sector, but also in the public sector from the standpoint of anything that needs to mitigate any problems that might occur as a result of development, such as additional widening of streets, signal lights, sound walls, sound protection, whatever the case may be. We have, in a way, used that technique in the sense of use permits. For instance, when Valco shopping center was developed, there were a large number of conditions applied to the use permit itself at that time, but it was kind of like a one-way agreement. The developer gained no particular protection with that. He just agreed to do certain things. This will assure the developer under the development agreement that if he does certain things, that he will be allowed to proceed with the development. And it would be over a period of time, so that he would not be concerned that a new council may come in or there may be a change in heart, and the council would reverse or change the land use in the middle of a development and after considerable investment by the private sector. On the other hand, it does protect the city too, and that's the reason why I think it will be a good agreement for the city.
Thank you very much for being here today, Bob.
Thank you, Dorothy.
I really appreciate it. And I'd like to invite all of you to stay tuned for the meeting of the Cupertino City Council. Thank you.